Welcome back, everybody. We're diving deep today into something that doesn't usually get much attention, after a U.S. presidential election. The journey from winning to actually taking office.
Yeah.
And, well, since Donald Trump is projected to win, we're going to focus on what happens before his second term begins.
It's really interesting. It's not just about what happens, but like the how and the why, too. Ensuring a smooth transfer of power, it tells us a lot about how American democracy really works.
Okay, so let's get started. The election was just a few days ago.
Yeah.
Where are we at right now in the whole process?
So we're in the thick of it right now. Election certification.
Okay.
It's going on in every state as we speak, all 50. Each state is carefully reviewing and confirming votes, making sure everything's accurate and fair before we get those final results.
This stage, I remember back in 2020, it felt really tense.
Absolutely.
Like, weren't some states' deadlines and procedures way different?
Oh, for sure. Each state has its own rules and timelines.
Right.
It can definitely be confusing.
Yeah.
Even lead to some legal challenges.
No.
So, for example, Arizona and Michigan, they've got till November 25th to certify. Wisconsin has until December 1st. But no matter the specifics, the goal is to get every valid vote counted.
Right.
And make sure the final count truly reflects what people wanted.
So it's not just about speed, it's about accuracy.
Right.
But why is that so crucial? I mean, don't we pretty much know the winner on election night?
You'd think so, but not always. Remember the 2000 election?
Oh, yeah.
The Florida recount? It came down to just a few hundred votes.
Wow.
And the Supreme Court ended up deciding. History shows us that even victories that seem huge can be challenged.
Right.
This careful certification process is super important so people trust the outcome.
It's about more than just the numbers.
Exactly.
It's about making sure everyone feels good about the process.
Absolutely.
I also remember a new law, something about reforming the electoral count.
Oh, right. The Electoral Count Reform Law, passed in 2022,
Yeah.
all because of what happened on January 6th, 2021. When there was that attempt to stop Joe Biden's win from being certified.
Right.
It clarifies what the vice president does, saying they can't reject electoral votes.
That was a huge concern back then.
Huge, yeah.
So this new law is basically trying to stop something like that from happening again.
Exactly. Make things smoother this time around.
Okay.
It also makes it harder to challenge electoral votes. You need way more support in Congress now.
Makes sense.
You got to have solid evidence if you want to contest the results.
Interesting. So some important safeguards there.
Yeah.
But the popular vote, we know, is just one part of the puzzle.
Right.
The Electoral College is who really picks the winner.
Yeah, while the popular vote tells us sort of where the country stands,
Right.
It's the Electoral College that has the final word.
Now, for anyone who isn't quite sure about this Electoral College system, can you give us a quick explanation?
Sure. So instead of voting directly for the president, voters in each state choose electors who've pledged to support a certain candidate.
Okay.
If a candidate wins the popular vote in a state, they usually get all of that state's electoral votes. That's the whole winner-take-all thing.
Okay.
Then these electors meet and officially cast their votes.
Got it.
And that's what determines the next president.
Like a second election, but with these electors instead of
Right.
like individual voters.
Exactly.
But this system, it's not without its critics.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the concerns people have about the Electoral College?
Well, one big one is that someone can win the presidency even if they lose the popular vote.
Right, like in 2016.
Exactly. Like with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, it makes people question if it's really fair.
If it shows what the majority actually wants.
Right, exactly.
Are there any other issues with this system?
Another interesting thing is faithless electors.
Okay.
These are electors who go rogue and vote for someone they weren't supposed to.
Yeah.
It's rare, but it shows how the system could have a flaw. Like an elector could go against their whole state.
Interesting. So there are definitely some debates around the Electoral College.
Absolutely.
But putting that aside, those electors have to meet and vote, right?
Exactly. On December 17th, all 538 of them, that's from all 50 states in D.C.,
Right.
they'll gather in their state capitals to officially cast their votes for president and vice president.
Okay.
It's a big step in, solidifying the results and moving us toward the inauguration.
December 17th. Got it. That's when we'll see what the Electoral College decides?
Right.
But then what? Where do the votes go after that?
They go to the president of the Senate to be counted officially.
Oh, right.
And this is where things get kind of interesting.
And a minute. Isn't Kamala Harris, the vice president, also the president of the Senate?
You got it.
But she's the one who, just lost to Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
The votes need to be in by December 25th, so that sets us up for, well, maybe a pretty interesting dynamic in the next part of this whole thing.
To have the person who lost the election be the one who counts the votes for the winner,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how that unfolds. But I guess we'll have to save that discussion for the next part of our deep dive.
Absolutely.
We'll be back soon and talk about all of that.
Looking forward to it.
Stay tuned, everyone.
Welcome back to our deep dive, everyone. Picking up where we left off, the Electoral College has voted, and those votes are headed to D.C. to get officially counted.
And as we mentioned before, it's outgoing Vice President Kamala Harris who's going to be receiving and counting them.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy, considering she was the one who ran against Trump this time around.
It definitely adds a whole other layer to things.
Okay.
On January 6, 2025, Congress officially counts the votes and declares the winner. And Kamala Harris, as president of the Senate, presides over it all.
You know, I can't help but think about January 6, 2021, when Trump supporters stormed the Capitol trying to stop Biden's certification. It's hard not to connect the two, especially with Trump back in the picture.
That day was a stark reminder about how fragile democracy can be.
Yeah.
And how crucial a peaceful transfer of power is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how does this new electoral count reform law, the one we talked about,
Right.
how does that aim to prevent something like that from happening again?
Well, it was designed to address the issues that came up that day.
Okay.
Remember all the debate about the vice president's role, like could they reject votes or not?
Yeah, it seemed really unclear.
Exactly. This new law makes it clear that the vice president's role is just ceremonial.
Okay.
They can't overturn the results or reject votes. Basically, it takes away any wiggle room, makes the process more straightforward.
So no more power for the VP to decide.
Yeah.
Just counting the votes as they are.
Exactly. It's about making sure the people's choice through the Electoral College is respected.
Got it. Like adding extra protection to the process.
Yeah.
To keep it from being messed with.
Exactly. What about those challenges to electoral votes? Can that still happen?
Challenges are still possible, but this law makes it way harder.
Yeah.
You need a lot more senators and representatives to back a challenge now.
Makes sense.
So you can't just object without solid evidence of something wrong.
So not impossible, but definitely harder to challenge now.
Right. The idea is to make sure any challenge is about real concerns, not just political games.
Seems like this new law is a good step towards keeping things fair and preventing another 2021 situation.
Definitely moving in the right direction. But even with all this, January 6th is probably going to be a nail-biter.
Yeah.
As everyone waits for Trump to be officially declared the winner.
Okay, so once the votes are counted and the winner's announced, we move to the final part,
Yeah.
and maybe the most symbolic part of this whole thing, Inauguration Day.
Ah, yes. January 20th, 2025. Everyone mark your calendars.
Okay.
That's when the world watches, as Trump takes the oath for his second term.
It's always interesting to think about how historically important Inauguration Day is.
Right.
This ceremony's been repeated for centuries. Each time, it reinforces the ideas of American democracy.
It's powerful, you know? A symbol of how things keep going, how resilient we are as a country.
Yeah.
From George Washington to Joe Biden, every president takes the same oath, promising to uphold the Constitution and serve the people.
Okay, so I got to admit, I'm also curious about the fun part of Inauguration Day.
Yeah.
Like, will Lady Gaga be back for another performance? What can we expect this time?
Well, everyone always wants to know about the festivities.
Right.
We don't know any specifics yet, but you can definitely expect the traditional pomp and circumstance, parades, music, balls. It's all part of what makes Inauguration Day so grand.
It's an event that the whole world pays attention to.
Absolutely.
Showing off American culture and tradition.
For sure. But at the heart of it all, it's the oath of office.
Yeah.
At noon, with his hand on the Bible, Trump will say those same 35 words that every president since Washington has said. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God.
Those 35 words hold so much weight.
Me too.
It's a huge commitment to serving the American people and upholding the Constitution.
Absolutely. A moment that goes beyond politics.
Yeah.
Reminding us that even with our differences, we're united as a nation under the law.
And as things wind down and the new administration gets settled, the question in everyone's mind is, what's next? What will this second term bring?
That's the big question.
And that's a perfect way to lead into the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore what Trump's return could mean for the future of the United States.
Should be interesting.
Stick with us, everyone. And we're back for the last part of our deep dive. We've covered all the steps of the U.S. presidential transition.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff.
It is, leading up to Donald Trump's second term.
A lot of people don't really think about this part, you know?
I know, right? Kind of gets lost in the shuffle after the election's over.
Exactly.
But knowing how it all works, from certifying votes to Inauguration Day, helps us really understand American democracy.
It does.
It's easy to get caught up in who wins and loses, but this behind-the-scenes stuff, that's important for everyone to know.
For sure. Absolutely.
So speaking of the new administration, what does Trump's second term mean for the U.S.? What changes might we see?
That's the big question, isn't it? We can't predict the future, of course.
Right.
But we can look at what happened during his first term, his campaign promises,
Yeah.
and what the political scene looks like now to get an idea.
Okay, so where should we start?
Well, one thing that immediately comes to mind is the Supreme Court.
Oh, right.
Remember, Trump appointed 3 justices in his first term.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
Huge. It shifted the balance of the court in a major way.
And that impacts so many things, right? Like abortion rights, gun control, the environment.
Exactly. Those appointments could shape things for decades to come, even after Trump's presidency.
It'll definitely be something to watch.
Absolutely.
What about things here at home? Domestic policy. What's high on Trump's agenda this time around, do you think?
Well, based on his past policies and what he talked about during the campaign, we can expect more debate on immigration, healthcare, climate change.
Right, he's pretty outspoken on those issues.
Oh, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how he handles them now, especially with how divided the country is.
I bet his foreign policy decisions will be watched closely, too.
For sure. His America First approach definitely shook things up globally last time.
Yeah.
Trade deals, relationships with other countries. We can assume he'll keep putting American interests first,
Okay.
but how that plays out in terms of actual policies, we'll just have to wait and see.
So much is still up in the air.
It is, but that's what makes it all so fascinating.
Absolutely. But how does all of this affect our listeners? What should they be thinking about?
That's the key question. Whatever happens in the next 4 years, it'll affect everyone, no matter what your political views are. It's more important now than ever to stay informed, to really think about the information you're getting,
Right.
and to get involved in the democratic process. Your voice matters.
So to wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with something to think about.
Okay.
How might everything we've talked about today, Trump's first term, January 6th, this new electoral count law, how might all of that shape what happens during his second term and, where the country goes from here?
It's a great question. History is always being made,
That's for sure.
and we all have a part in shaping it. What role will you play?
That's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We hope you learned something, and we encourage you to keep digging into these topics, asking questions, and forming your own opinions.
Absolutely.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.